Okay, we'll jump right into the NFT panel. First of all, thank you for sticking again in this afternoon for this talk. The topic is about the next generation of innovative NFT because today we have Lootex representing gaming NFT. We also have James from Giloo representing entertainment film NFT, and we also have Joshua who just flew in from the United States just for this. He will be talking about how to do indexing across different NFT platform aggregators and different chains. Maybe first of all, we should have everyone introduce yourself and your company.
Start with me? Yeah. All right, hello everyone. My name is David, COO and co-founder of Lootex. So Lootex is a game-focused NFT marketplace that we started since 2018. We foresee the future will be a lot of digital items recorded on blockchain, which gives a lot of ownership identity on chain. So it basically needs a place for gamers to trade safely. So that's why we found Loot and Exchange. Loot stands for in-game items. Exchange is for related to buy and sell. So this is briefly introduced about Lootex.
My name is Josh. I'm super happy to be here. First time in Taiwan, really loving it so far. I'm the co-founder of Indexer. Indexer is a multi-chain indexing infrastructure. We primarily focus on NFTs. Kind of our vision is to be the programmatic interface for all digital assets. We have primarily focused on non-EVM chains because they've been the least supported. But we build universal data layers that developers can tap into to touch any liquidity and do transactions on chain. So we aggregate all major marketplaces across all the chains that we are indexing.
Great. James?
Hello, guys. This is James. Right now, managing director at Giloo. This is a place. Giloo is a company that started out as a streaming services that is focusing on independent films across genres, documentaries, animations, and these kind of things in Taiwan. We are a boutique streaming services that has sort of become like the platform for creative classes in Taiwan. We do online streaming and also offline events. We do events like 2,000 people watching films together for like 6 hours. It was kind of fun. And starting from last year, we ventured into Web3. The idea is that to turn ourselves into an open platform where filmmakers and distributors can start to have different ways to monetize their content, build a relationship with the audience and stuff. So you can imagine that in the future, issuing NFTs or of different formats can be one way for filmmakers and distributors to not only monetize but also connect with their audiences. And that's what we're building right now.
Okay, great. Thank you for the brief introduction. Maybe I'll throw the first question to David from Lootex. Like, as the quiz have indicated that Lootex is one of the first that implement and built on new token standard ERC 4337 and ERC 404. What are your hands-on real experience implementing these standards? And can you explain these standards in some simple language to the audience?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm present to pursue some like technical implementation. So if there's a new token standard, I'm be the first one to build some innovative application, especially on Lootex. So basically, 4337 is we call it account abstraction. So from a product level, to answer this question is that we can really build an app that with the same user experience with mobile apps or website, any website that we are familiar to. So because account abstraction redefine the wallet into 3 different sectors: the user, the signer, and the smart contract wallets. So it is more complex to build a website that redesign how user behavior on your website. So for account, if you go to lootex.io, you wanted to create an account, and you don't have knowledge of installing crypto wallets. So now you only have to enter your email, and we will create your user account. And we will create a signer for you to control your smart contract wallet. So that is basic the idea that without any crypto knowledge, you can create an account on Lootex in 5 seconds. So basically, this is the first one that we achieve, a better user experience for onboarding. And second part, I think the most powerful feature that powered by 4337 is the gas fee payment. So now, after you register the account from Lootex, and you can do a free mint without any gas. And the gas fee could be paid from us or any sponsorship on our platform. So that is the most different way than before. Yeah, so this is the second part. And I think the future will be when user visiting your website, it will be considered gas as a server cost. So they don't really have to pay in the very beginning of the user journey. So I think that's a breakthrough part. And the third part is when you using a MetaMask in a dApp, and you always have to do a lot of popping up window to sign the transactions. And this makes the user experience harder to understand, especially when you don't even know the content that you sign for, because there's a lot of bytes and a lot of data fields that you don't understand. So I think the signless experience is also what 4337 can empower us to do. So in summary, we build a smart account for people to get on board on the Web3 in a more easier and accessible way.
Great, great. Okay. The second question, actually, follow-on question will be for all three of you guys, is with so many emergence of new NFT token standards, which one is your favorite, and how it might be impactful to the whole NFT market? Yeah, maybe if Joshua or James have any.
Sure. I mean, I think 404 is really interesting for a couple of reasons, but I'm going to diverge into a different token standard. 404 is really interesting to see how it plays out. I think that's something that probably every NFT marketplace or anybody that's dealing with NFTs is really looking at, because if you look at the way like PFP projects are really trading, they're kind of trading as meme coins. And it allows you to get into a community basically the same amount of liquidity that you'd get into any other fungible token, so like on DEXs. So it's injecting a ton of liquidity into the market. No NFT marketplace has gone all in on 404, but it's something we're definitely watching, and at an indexing level as well, that we need to be aware of and like build tools around. I do think Sui has a really interesting, like they have a kiosk, native kiosk standard, which does do enforcement of royalties on chain. Something that's interesting there is it actually, like everybody says that they want like enforced royalties, especially like NFT creators, et cetera. But if you're really going to enforce royalties, it means that you have to change the way the transfer function works to where you can no longer do peer-to-peer transfers. And so Sui, they've kind of had a lot of issues. I mean, there's probably 3 competing NFT standards inside Sui right now. But with the royalty enforcements, it's been very strange for users when they go to mint an NFT and they can't transfer for free. So what you have to do is you have to pay a royalty in the transfer function. And it breaks just a lot of, everybody has been, it's been interesting to watch over the last year and a half, where everybody wants royalties enforced on chain, like at a smart contract layer directly inside the transfer function. But in practice, that's actually not what consumers want, because it breaks all the like normal use cases that you think how things would work. So we're like actively working with Mission Labs to kind of develop this and get it into the right way. But there's been some interesting learnings there where NFT creators and consumers aren't quite on the same page, and it's something to kind of look for as it develops there.
Great.
I think in the context of NFT, I've been following some development on the, in general, we will probably call it dynamic NFT in the sense that either the metadata or like the assets of itself can actually be changed and then been updated, and also the way that represents these NFT can be more structured, so it's like better being searched or indexed, for example. And you can have like layers of NFTs, like NFT including other NFTs, like a sort of a tree hierarchy, for example. I was just talking to, I think, like days ago, there's actually a new startup called Patchwork. About 4 or 5 people out of like Coinbase. They just run a new ways of like doing this. You can actually have like structured NFTs, and they have a demo, and it's really amazing because in our case, for example, you can imagine that membership NFT can become very different. If you have like one membership card as an NFT, and below you have a structure of NFT, all these like reputations and achievements badges and all that. You can change, you can trade if you want, if it's tradable. Like all these kind of different ways of like use cases can sort of emerge once these ways of like structure or dynamic NFTs can be more popular in the space. It's something that I've been following a lot. I think there's a EIP, I think 7549 or something, and also 6551, of course, like token bounded account, token bound
accounts, yeah.
Yeah. Turning a token into an address, it's basically turning it into a wallet. That's also very, very amazing and powerful. We're still very early, I think. Yeah, a lot of things can happen.
Yeah, I want to add up on some token standard in especially NFTs. So when you see, just like David mentioned, after CryptoKitties come out, a lot of when there's new token standard, a developer always very confused about how we show to the users, because user also got confused. And I think new token standard means the journey of discovery, that we can imagine what application built on top of that token standard. So basically, in 721, a lot of metadata can be dynamic adjust. Some of them are frozen. So thanks to OpenSea, there are a frozen button that you will discover this PFP cannot change the pictures after they see showing it. So I think new token standard, developer have to imagine what's the next application on top of the token standard. And I think for 404, I think it's very interesting token standard that they have both benefit characteristic on both fungible token and non-fungible token. So if you see when our user buy NFTs, basically they will search the JPEG that they like and then they collect. So basically it's more like an individual value for them, because this picture looks like me or my girlfriend, so I buy it or gifting for them. So this is the more like individual value. And other part or for the user are more like a collective value. It's like a floor price of the NFTs I collected, and the certain value of them have a strong reference for the floor price. So 404, I think they have benefit for both, that you can swap the collective value of NFT that you owns in the interface like a Uniswap. So that makes trading more faster than before. And you can still keep the one that you like for individual values for everyone. So I think that's how we imagine that 404 token will inspire the next behavior of the NFT collectors.
Great. Maybe speaking about these innovative NFT use case for James or even Ben, you guys can share how NFT disrupt traditional filmmaking, production, distribution, and even fundraising.
Wow, that's you just covered the whole film industry. Starting from fundraising. Yeah. I mean, I think we've been witnessing some examples, but it's not. I would say the film and entertainment industry is, in a way, running just fine, in the sense that films are being produced, and we watch films on like streaming platforms and everything. But actually, if you dive deep down, there's a serious distribution problem in the film and entertainment business. One can be there are several reasons and the symptoms, in the sense that, for example, there's actually a good example. I think there's a film director called Brian Fogger whose film Icarus is, I think, won the best documentary feature in Oscar, and is being streamed on Netflix globally. So it's like huge success, big check, everything works fine. But his next film is called Dissidents, and it's about a Washington Post journalist disappeared I think it's Saudi Arabia's embassy in Istanbul. And that film's got like zero distribution possibility. Like, he was like trying really hard to find distributions. So even an Oscar-winning filmmaker can have, because maybe the nature of the film, the context of the film, have distribution problems in terms of like leveraging the existing systems. The other example I would give is actually that's the Sundance Film Festival. It's like the premiere, right? So can you guys imagine that every year how many films are being submitted to Sundance?
Several thousand?
Several thousand.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. Like, for feature films, there's like every year there's like 5,000 films submitted to Sundance. If you include the short films, that's another 10,000. So that's how many films being submitted to Sundance. Of course, as a physical film festival, they can probably premiere about like maybe 200. And out of the 200, there's probably like 3 to 5 will be picked up by like Netflix or Amazon. So there's like a very like huge disparity of like the production side of things and the consumption side of things. And I think that's something that we have to address if we believe that the stories, more stories being seen is important to the society. And I think that's why that's how NFTs can play an important role in the sense that it's about organizing communities of same interest. It's about monetize. It's about giving values from the filmmakers, from the creators. They have so many assets. They have so many. In order to produce a film, you have to prepare a lot of things. And even if the final films, right now, the only way you can monetize it is through viewership. But the price of viewing one film is pretty much already set by the world. So I think NFTs, or like the idea of local communities gather together through like organizing, either fundraise a film or like advocating the film at the distribution. And also filmmakers and producers can use different ways of issuing NFTs to give values to people who like their work. I think all these things is possible with the technology of NFT in the film industry. Yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's how I would put it. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Does Ben want to add any comments? I was just looking at Ben. Okay. So, next question is for Joshua. I bet many of people out there will be interested in asking, why did Indexer choose non-EVM chains to start from? And how does Indexer acquire the largest market share on Sui and Aptos?
Yeah, so I'll break that into kind of two different parts. Indexer, so we started out on Stacks, which most people probably haven't heard of. They're hearing about it now. It's an L2 for Bitcoin. My co-founder and I, we built kind of the NFT standards on that chain. We did the first launch pads. We did first marketplace, first aggregated marketplace, et cetera, which is where we came into the Indexer problem. And so inside the Stacks chain, we basically went from like 3% market share to over 70% market share in like 3.5 months. And we had like really great competitors. It's like Stacks is like this weird community of like PhDs basically. And we're like, okay, why are we like gaining so much market share than everybody else? Why are we shipping faster than everybody else? And what we realized was at the time, this is like early seasons of NFTs. Basically, before aggregators, people were building like one-to-one mappings of their smart contract or their of their marketplace. And so if you think about that, if you take like a very simple NFT marketplace, let's just say it's listings and you want to be able to buy a listing. You're going to build like a one-to-one. You need to build a database layer to read the state of your smart contract. And what was happening, because people were building one-to-one mappings, if they wanted to add a new feature, like you want to do collection offers or you want to do bids, you were having to add a new data model into your infrastructure. And a lot of times you may break your infrastructure, which would then break your front end, and it was just really bad feedback loop, a developer technical debt essentially, where it was really hard to just ship features. And then if you want to integrate a third-party marketplace, they have very different functions. They're representing state very, very differently. Like, how do you even aggregate these other marketplaces? And what we had built internally was this abstracted, basically universal data layer, where because we were abstracted and it was universal, if someone launched a new marketplace, a competitor came up, we could integrate them in a few hours and have a full run. So we were just gaining market share. We were shipping faster than everybody else, and we were bootstrapped at the time. And that's when I went to my co-founder. We were bootstrapped, and it was just like, hey, I think this indexing layer is where all the value's at, and we could build like a venture company. We're from the Midwest, so I don't know, we like to do maybe the harder thing. It was really important to me to go, okay, we have this idea that we could build a universal data layer that's going to work on any blockchain infrastructure. EVMs look very different than Sui, which looks different than Aptos, which definitely looks different than Bitcoin. It's kind of this bold challenge that you could build like one API, one data layer across all these blockchains that looks the same. And so at the time we were looking at Near, which had the fastest developer growth rate out of like the big ones, which was ETH and Solana. And Near they were doing a lot of interesting things. One, they had parallelization, it's super fast, it was a hyperchain. And then all these other hyperchains started coming out. So obviously there was Aptos and Sui. And internally we're like, okay, if we can do Stacks and Near, we could do any blockchain. Our user base from Near was going to Aptos, so we went to Aptos, then we went to Sui. And now you're looking at, okay, TVM really matters now. Like, we have product market fit. Basically every marketplace uses us, all the wallets use us, all the market makers use us, like our infrastructure and SDKs. And now we are going into the EVMs, but we just took a different route, mainly to future-proof ourselves that, hey, if new blockchains come online, we know that we can build them into our model because we've already faced a ton of edge cases. Market share is really interesting. So there's a couple different parts of our business. Obviously, we have API calls. So those are developers just reading from our data. We make our money basically on transactions. So we do run our own order books. So if you're like a marketplace who wants to come in and you want all the liquidity, basically all the listings, you can just tap into our SDK and you can do trades. So we do 2.5% on all our first-party transactions, 0.5% on all third-party transactions. And so like gaining, for our business, you have this nice feedback loop if you had the dominant market share. So in the bear market, we really decided, okay, like the most important metric for us is on the consumer side of the business, so the transaction side of the business, is 6-month retention. We just kind of put 6 months out there, like let's get our retention up as high as we possibly can. We ended up getting it into the high 80s. We've hit low 90s as well, but now we're about 87% on the consumer side of 6-month retention. That was a super focus for us. So in the bear market, if you just think of like how these markets work, especially on these newer blockchains where the GMV is not super high, you don't have a lot of churn inside the marketplace contracts, retention was going to matter. When the bull market came back with our retention rates, we just kind of took over the market. One of the big reasons we did that is we really focused in Web3, basically all Web3 companies kind of have this issue, is like, how do you retain users? How do you talk to your users? You can't run ads in Web3. Nobody's going to click on a Web3 ad. It's going to be spam. How do you talk to your users directly? Obviously, you have Discord. But we wanted to build like a one-to-one relationship for a ton of users. Because we run Indexer, basically every NFT community in all of our ecosystem uses our bots. So everybody does role verification through the Indexer Discord bots. The Sui Foundation, the Aptos Foundation, Near Foundation, basically everybody uses us in all the NFT communities. And we just went from like a one-to-many relationship to a one-to-one. So we started opting users in to receive direct DMs. So if anything happens into your wallet, you receive a DM from us, and we can direct them into one of our IPs. That one indicator takes 6-month retention from like 40% to high 80% just by getting them into a one-to-one relationship where you can communicate with them. So that's how we basically took over Sui. So Hyperspace was the dominant marketplace there. We run Tradeport. We went from like 4% to 80% market share in basically a month as soon as the bull market came back. and we've retained it all the way through Q1.
Nice. Like for people who don't know that Indexer, they not only dominant the four chains NFT trading volume, but they also expand four of the chains transaction total market by several X for Sway, Aptos, and so on.
Yeah, so there's a really interesting, obviously the Misfit team really likes this, and so does Aptos Foundation. What's interesting is when a company can drive retention up, users are more engaged, and transaction volume on the chain goes way up. So if you think about this, probably everybody's experienced this. Let's say that you have your NFT listed on Marketplace A, you receive a bid on Marketplace C that you never check, you're never gonna see that bid. You're never gonna see that collection offer. And what we did is we boosted retention because it's like Marketplace C, someone puts a bid on your item, we message you, you can go and you accept that bid if it's a good bid. And so users are just way more engaged, where they're signing a lot more transactions so that they can see what's going on in the entire market. That drives retention, and then the users who are already signing transactions start signing more transactions. And so it's been really good for all the ecosystems that we've been a part of.
Yeah, speaking about fee and revenues, like I will also like to throw this question to Lootex and Giloo, like how you develop your business model and capture value. Yeah.
Yeah, we try to do some innovative way to have more sustainable income. So for our platform fee, to be honest, we do slightly higher than our NFT marketplace. So because that in that way, the user really are extracted by our core feature or the content, but not the platform fee that they can trade any other else. So this is on purpose. And so the question for us is, what is the next business model? I think we can develop a more Web2 way to monetize, because as a marketplace, we have to pay like a marketplace indexer API fees, a lot of cost. So how can we earn money from acquiring more users? So basically, the one thing that we have to tackle is acquire new user, and when you pay gas fee for them, this is all the acquisition cost for other Web2 companies. It's the same concept. So you can imagine there's a way like powered by a smart account that if they watch an ad, and your gas fee could be sponsored by someone else. So this dynamic will be acquiring more new users onto a platform and can cause more transactions on our platform. Yes.
Yeah, right now we are a subscription-based streaming services. So basically, the business model itself is a subscription-based model from our membership fees from our membership. And so I was talking about we're expanding our platform into a open platform where filmmakers and distributors can start to upload their contents and then monetize different ways. In that case, then our business model will be almost like a transaction fee based. So whenever there's a transaction, Giloo will take a cut. And then built on top of that will be on the content owner or filmmaker side, there will be like a SaaS kind of tool-based kind of business model that freemium model starting from a free tier and then go using different tiers or like amount of the richness of the features that you have to pay. So that's business model-wise, that would be the two basic items on our list. And go from that, we're thinking about other different ways because it's interesting that Josh mentioned that in the Web3 world, like the idea of ad is very like, but how do we think about that in the Web3 world, right? I think one way to think about it is actually where NFT can play a very interesting role in the sense that when the users collect something, it's actually, how do we understand this? It's actually showing the intention that to build a sort of like a communication link to maybe the people or like organizations issuing the NFT. So in the future, maybe I'm just imagining that in the future the ad model will be very different in the sense that when you use NFT as storytelling your brand or storytelling your services, the users will actually mint that, collect that. Because of the layer 2 and everything, the gas will be really low. So it's like just showing an intention that I'm interested in learning more by minting or by collecting. And so along the way, the users start together, sort of in a way build who I am or what I'm interested in. And they also give legitimate position for the services or products to reach me saying that, okay, I'm interested in your products. Maybe I'm willing to like get DMs or like even further discounts from these products and services. So maybe in the future with the NFT and everything, the whole idea of advertisement will change. And in that, for this kind of thing, in our case, maybe it will be something also different in the future, like the ad model. In Giloo case will be also different. Like imagining through along the way, like a user on our platforms collecting tickets for movies or like buying collectibles from filmmakers, and then it becomes over time it becomes like a layer of data that future films or new projects who wants to find fundings or like sell tickets. There's actually a way to access us because I specifically express my interest in this particular kind of genre or films by minting, by collecting. So that in terms of business model, maybe in the future that will be also something that we're exploring. Yeah.
I think pretty much like finish the questions that I've prepared, but I would love to open up the floor for the audience to see if there's any question. Any question? Yeah.
I had a question on, I guess for all of you, but maybe Josh in particular, on like, how you see blockchains, like sort of multi-chain ecosystems scaling over the next while. The various competing theses with like Polygon Ag Layer, Optimism Superchain. Maybe things are just continue to be kind of messy across lots of different chains. Just curious to hear all of you guys' theses on that.
Yeah, so I think there's maybe two ways to break this out. There's like the technical side of it, and then the adoption side of it. I think the adoption side's kind of a more interesting one. And this, I actually may take this maybe a different way than your question's going. I really think the foundations at all these blockchains are super important. Like the BD teams at a blockchain foundation is the most important thing for an ecosystem. And without a great BD team, like you're just not going to get any adoption into the chain. So obviously, like you got the big players. You have Bitcoin, which has legacy. I was also very surprised by ordinals. I did not understand the power of the Bitcoin community, or it also doesn't make sense to me because it's all off chain and there's like, it seems different than the Bitcoin ethos. You have EVM, which is amazing because if you've built on ETH, you can easily adopt any of the EVM chains. So like Base is in a great position. And then Base has Coinbase, so they have an amazing BD team. The way I kind of see like the multi-chain ecosystems, I think driving transaction fees down is incredibly important. If we're going to have, like especially in the NFT world, the next phase of adoption, if we're doing games, assuming those actually come online, transaction fees have to be basically zero. Today you have Solana, I guess you have Base now, which has gotten things very, very cheap. There are some EVM L2s, but I do think like the move ecosystems, the guys coming out of Facebook or Meta, they've done some really interesting things. That's why we placed a bet on Aptos and Sui, because they have great, Sui in particular has a great BD team. They don't have great NFT standards, but it's unbelievably cheap to transact there. So I think these things are going to compete in this cycle. I think EVM is going to be strongly dominant. And then it is so lucrative for people to launch new blockchains. I think there's always going to be new blockchains. And then I think adoption is going to leapfrog to different ones based on how good the business development team is for basically tackling a very specific niche and gaining adoption there. So if you look at like Sui, they're kind of all in on gaming, and it's kind of, if they get gaming adoption, then all the other games there, and there's a flywheel. And then as you choose in the NFT market, NFTs can represent any asset. So I think every blockchain is up for grabs on can they capture market share in a specific asset class as we start to see things outside of just PFP pictures and JPEGs and NFTs as we see it today. So I think the field's still wide open. We're very in the early beginning as a founder, kind of choosing which ecosystems to go to, and then maybe even as a consumer investor, looking at what ecosystems we want to go into or you want to put your money into. It's like inside baseball is look at the BD team, like how good are they at attracting founders and connecting founders and like building strong nodes and networks. And then every new asset class is going to be up to grabs for any chain to capture market share there. That was a long-winded answer, sorry guys.
Yeah, so my viewpoint as a founder, when I choose a new blockchain to support, I will look at what are the blockchain that OpenSea did not support yet. That's because there must be some users that wanted to have this kind of marketplace, but don't really have a marketplace to trade. So this is the first that I will consider. And the second one is because I think layer 2 is very important to roll up to layer 1, the security as the same level as the Ethereum S. So I think most of the marketplace you need to support Ethereum is a very basic one. And if you want to acquire new users that they really don't know what blockchain to choose, layer 2 might be my best solution. That's why working on a point system also is important for the onboarding new users. You can pay the gas fee from layer 2, which not in the format that they're familiar. It might be like ETH on Arbitrum level is a very hard concept for user to understand.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see like this multi-chain space from a user's point of view, in a sense that we realized that, and we found that actually different chains starting to sort of position themselves differently in terms of like what kind of communities they are supporting. For example, even it's just EVM-L2, like Arbitrum community is very different from Optimism, right? And Base also, as like if you're a creator or like artist, probably you're more inclined to know more about like OP, is that? Oh. Yeah, versus like when people talk about like Arbitrum, maybe it's like, oh, it's like the layer 2 for DeFi people, for example. And then the base is another like, oh, we're onboarding another 1 billion people, like so it's like normie kind of thing. Even reflect on the meme coin side of things, like the different meme coins on different chains. So to me, it's more like start to see like different like, or a Polygon is like very gaming kind of. For public impressions. So it's interesting to see how this evolved and then different chains, because of a different community, different use cases, there might be different specifics that are trying to support different use cases in different communities.
I think for people to understand better about what Joshua's vision is, right, maybe you like him.
Yeah, so Poseidon asked me to kind of do a demo of Indexer, and so we'll get into kind of the data layer that's like running everything for these marketplaces. I'm gonna give just a high-level overview. I'm assuming everybody's kind of familiar with what an NFT marketplace looks like and kind of how I transact on chain. I think this is a pretty deep Web3 community. One thing I just want to point out, this isn't as novel now. Obviously, OpenSea Pro has done some amazing jobs on this, and Magic Eden started to get some of their UI interfaces in order. But everything on the side everything's running off the same data layer. So here, like we have Aptos, Near, Stacks, and Sui, which are very different blockchains. None of them are EVM. None of them have the same architecture, and they're all living inside the same UI component. This used to be very hard to do. And I'm just going to go through the interface real quick, and then we'll actually go into the code that's running this. But like, for instance, we're just going to drop into Aptos Monkeys, typical like Blur style user interface. But what we've done on the site to make it really easy for all these developers is you can go into any component, you can hit code, and you can see the GraphQL query that's running this like exact component. And there's nothing custom here. So like this component is running directly off the Indexer API that any of you guys, if you go on site, you can get an API key and you can power anything you want. Before I get into that, though, just kind of showing off some features. Like when we go into this owner, obviously we can see all their assets, we can see all their activity. We also have like all their profit and loss. So every transaction on chain we peg to the fiat price at point in time, which allows you to do, for traders out there, like these nice P&L statements across any trade. And this is across all marketplaces inside Aptos. So if you buy it on Topaz, you sell it on Mercado, like you still get your P&L. And then you can do asset value over time. There's a lot of interesting things you can do on asset value. We just peg it to the floor price, but if we go back 7 days ago, this is asset value of that user, whatever was in their wallet, at the price of Aptos on that day. And if you want to see how we do that, you can just hit the GraphQL query for that. So if we just go back to the marketplace, kind of show this off. Obviously, we're looking at Aptos monkeys. We can open and run this in the Explorer. Make sure, let me pull this out. And then we can just hit play, and we can get all the data that was running that user interface. So the way we've built this, so if we just break this down, like we have Aptos, Near, Stacks, and Sui. This can be hard to type here, but I'll try to do this. Let's just say that we want to get the limit. We'll keep it easy. Last 10 actions. We can get a bunch of different data. So actions, we're probably going to change the names in our next version that's coming out on ETH. But you can think of actions as like transaction receipts. So like what was actually taking place. If you do like a buy transaction, you're going to have a buy action, you're going to have a transfer action. So they're like one-to-many relationships with transactions. You get sender, receiver, price, NFT. You can get a bunch of data here. And then it's very composable. So we can go from actions. Obviously, you're going to want to see the NFT. So we can get the owner and the metadata and the attributes. We're just going to do owner and name. I probably need my API keys here so we don't get rate limited. But it's similar to the data earlier. So you can select whatever data that you need, NFT owner. But the nice thing about this, because it's all universal data layer, we can go from Sui, we can literally just change this to Aptos, and then run that exact same query, and it's going to pull in all the data. So for developers, the reason a lot of people adopt us and use us is if you build to one blockchain, let's say that you're moving into Sui, like Lootex, and then you want to expand into Aptos, and then you want to expand into like ETH when ETH goes live in a few weeks, you get it all out of the box. And then the SDKs are set up the exact same way, where you go, I want to list an NFT. You don't have to go figure out like what function call do I need to call for marketplace A, B, C, D, E. You can just say, here's the NFT ID, here's the marketplace I want to list it on, here's the price I want to list it on, and it'll build that transaction payload for you. Or if you want to buy an NFT from various different marketplaces, you don't have to go figure out all the routing. You can just say, buy NFT, or you want to sweep NFTs, you pump in a bunch of different NFT objects based on our model. They could be listed across 5 different marketplaces. It'll build that transaction payload, and you can just sign that transaction. And so this was really built out of kind of this vision of there's a bunch of different NFT ecosystems. None of them are compatible. It's a pain in the ass as a developer to kind of like integrate all these systems. How do we make this as simple as possible to where one day we can get to this world where the example I'd kind of use from a vision statement is like, how cool would it be if you're buying a car? Let's say, and for whatever reason, you're in the market for a red Prius. You could go, hey, show me every red Prius that's ever been made across any year. And then I want one with less than 30,000 miles on it. I want to see everyone that's listed across every used car dealership in the world. And then there's a very specific one that you want that's not for sale. I can place a bid on that, and that user can know that there's a bid, and they can accept that. And I think that's what's really interesting about NFTs and indexing in general in the Web3 space, or indexing in the Web3 space, which wasn't available in like traditional markets, is everything's available. It's a hard problem. Like it's hard to get that data, but there's no black boxes. Or if you look at traditional finance, or you look at that used car dealership, there's a bunch of data in a bunch of different silos that you will never get access to, and you can't aggregate it. Where in Web3 is every asset is on chain. They may be using different protocols, different standards, different architectures, but we can go get that data and we can build like a truly transparent market. And that's what we're doing here, and this is kind of our first version that's been built out of running marketplaces, doing tons of launches, spending a lot of time with developers on like what their needs are, and then just make it as easy as possible to get the data and move assets around.
Well, any question for Indexer? They're a small team, but a very, very technical team. In terms of their technical productivity, it's crazy.
Yeah, so we're really at 6 engineers at the moment, 2 customer success. So that's been kind of our ethos. Again, we're building across multiple chains. We're not like the smallest team in the space. We're definitely not the biggest. But everything that we build is based on we can't do anything custom inside the company. That's basically the #1 mandate. Any feature that we ship has to be available to everybody, and it has to be based on the universal model. And if it's not, and it's not powered by Indexer, we just don't do it. We say no.
Any question? Yeah, you.
Hello, this is Tiffany from Comma 3 Ventures. I'm actually very impressed that you have spent a lot of effort in the Move ecosystem. So do we, because we are one of the biggest investors in the Sui ecosystem. We've invested into Cetus, Navi, Scallop, accounting for like 70% of TVL on Sui. And I know that the NFT ecosystem of Sui and Aptos is quite early, and there are still other Move ecosystem L1s or L2s coming out, including like Initia, including like Movement Labs. So I would like to ask you about what are your perspectives on the Move ecosystem, NFT ecosystem Move, because obviously Sui supports dynamic NFTs, right? While Aptos has other plans. They are focusing more on like RWAs, and while Initia is still very early figuring out their ways. So I would like to learn more on your points.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, NFTs, like if we think of NFTs in general, like across most chains, like the PFP NFTs dominate. If you're talking about like GMV, like PFPs typically dominate. I think where Sui is fairly smart and where they're kind of moving into is they're doing a lot of deals with large game companies. Obviously game, and if you look at like the bear market, it's really like if you look at Gods Unchained, things like SoRare, et cetera, they hold through cycles transaction volume really, really well. So like what Lootex is doing. I don't think that like PFP ecosystem or the art ecosystems inside Sui are ever going to get to the level of Solana. I do think the games have a really good chance of like leapfrogging and kind of like leading in that area. For one from the technical side, Sui's got a lot of really interesting things going for it on the technical side, but specifically their business development team that we have talked to basically every foundation, period, like all the ETH foundations. Back in the day, I mean, last cycle, Polygon's BD team was considered like the best BD team, but it really got gutted in the cycle. So like a lot of those people aren't there anymore. Same thing with Solana, kind of early. Today, I would say the 2 best business development teams out of blockchain ecosystems that we talked to, and we talked to quite a few, is Base and the Miston Labs Sui team, because mainly because they bring a professionalism into the industry, having come from Meta, where they're able to get deals done, and they're super responsive, and they're great with their founders, and everybody who like deals with the Miston team actually loves them, where you can't say that about basically any other ecosystem. So that I would say that's like the bull case for Sui is they've done a great job attracting games, signing gaming deals. I don't think the PFP ecosystem is going to get there on Sui. Just that's not really the meta at the moment. They have a great BD team. I do think some of the downsides, though, is, and they're working really hard on this, is they had a lot of standard issues when they came out. So there was the Origin Byte standard. Origin Byte kind of shut down, so the Clutch ecosystem kind of shut down. There's just a lot of competing standards that are trying to get in order from a technical perspective so that it's easier for developers to build. It's one of the kind of the interesting reasons, because the standards are so hard, even like competitive marketplaces to us use our indexing infrastructure just because the standards are so hard to deal with across all the different marketplaces. So they need to get that in order if they're going to get widespread adoption. It's good for us, but for the ecosystem, they need to get that in order.
Thanks for the insight.
Yep.
Very appreciate it.
Any other questions? Not only for Josh, but also for David and Jimmy.
I'd like to have a question for all three speakers. Since the last programs started by like NBA Top Shot and also celebrity changing their PFP to NFT, and also there's like Solana, there are lots of NFT with this like free to earn, walk to earn, like X to earn, like topic like that. So my question is, what do you think the next opportunity for massive adoption of NFT? Like what's the next overall, what's the topic? And also, is there any chance that NFTs are adopted by not people already know crypto, but that people like don't know crypto, they found NFT is interesting and use it as a gateway to get into Web3?
Okay, I guess I'll answer first. So I think the next ball for NFT in really short term, I think meme coin, sort of meme coin or mini games would do. And for longer term, I believe in games. So when we in Lootex, we still feature like 4 games bi-weekly. So there's a lot of good games are coming up very soon because for the past, the user experience is not good enough, the technical is not scaled enough, but all these problems have been solved. So there are one reason for Web3 game to be a bull market leading category. It's the value proposition of the Web3 game, whether it is very higher priority on the gameplay or user incentives. So imagine that you are building a game, you have to choose like one highest key metrics for gameplay or user incentives. So basically, what we choose our partner is we choose the gameplay for the more longer term success of the game. Because if you are using the user incentive as the highest priority, it is more likely to be a zero-sum game. But so the most challenging part is that you find value from external users to put in money or external business model to keep this model sustained. So once this is not sustainable, user will figure this out very quickly, and they will not join you again. So other choice is that you put the gameplay at the most high priority. That I think user will be purely for fun, just enjoying these games. But in order to have some advantage in Web3 technology, you play around with your money and your virtual items. So it must be related to some trading and money investment in virtual assets. So there's a lot of this kind of games are coming up recently, like Sharpnail or Matrix is doing a good first-person shooting game. It's very put on the top of the gameplay at the beginning of the internal decision level. So I think for the long term, game will be the most likely way to acquire more users.
I think when we say bull run for NFTs, it's probably very related to the idea that you can trade and there's like the financial upside of like speculating side of things. But I think if we're talking about mass adoption, like we're talking about billions of people, I just don't see that if we build a whole industry for 1 billion people all trading, like for the upside of the NFT, I don't know how that works. But I think the values can provide, that the NFTs can bring up is a lot. There's definitely a lot of things that we can bring to users, and I think one way we've been looking at is the whole idea of over time. How do you by minting or like collecting NFTs, you build the identity of who you are, and that's actually if we can do that. And also with a lot of different use cases to strengthen the idea of ownership. the idea that, okay, this is something really like mine, and right now this ownership is manifested in the fact that I can trade. I can actually list and I can trade, but there are definitely like more ways of like to manifest that ownership of owning a token, owning a things. For example, like how do we express it? How do I express the owning the specific tokens? What kind of other interesting experiences or values I can get, maybe provided by different part of the world, total different services, that because I own this thing, so I can get to play or get to get values from different places. Like these kind of ownership, how do we as an industry can work together to provide that? I think it's very crucial and the major challenge when we're talking about adoption of NFT for the next billion people. Like we all talk about the read, write, own, like ownership, and right now this ownership thing is like very limited, and it's very difficult to understand for people. Like, what do you mean, like, oh, I own this thing, right? Like this ownership is just not because it's token, it's on the blockchain. It's actually because you can actually, you can actually, yeah. I think what it means to actually own a token has to be it's a making, right? It's a process. It's the fact that you can use it, like, and these are the things that I think we as an industry should build on. For example, like Lootex and us. Thanks.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Avantika, and I'm from Domin, and thank you for the great talk. I am curious about two things. So the first part is there are two things which are starkly different from Web 2 and Web 3, and when we talk about mass adoption, I would like to know which one do you think is a difficult problem to crack. One is the jargon or the narrative that is being used by Web 3 or crypto native users to non-crypto or crypto adjacent users, or do you think it's the user experience which is very starkly different from everyday Web 2 platforms? And which one do you think is a little more difficult to crack in sense of mass adoption and business development? And how do you think that as a Web3 native user, you can crack that gap with crypto adjacent or even non-crypto users? Thank you.
To answer the question probably directly, I think the harder one to crack, just because it's really hard to change culture, is going to be the language and like the jargon. I mean, we're all inside Web3. It would be very hard for me to change the words that I use. So I think that one's going to be extremely hard to crack, just because when a culture kind of takes root, like culture is extremely hard to change once it gets going. And I think to change language is to change culture. So I think that one's going to be really hard. The UX kind of experience of it being different than like Web3 and Web2, having a very different user experience, that's quite hard. The nice thing about that is that's an engineering problem, and so it can be solved. And like even if we look at like where we were 3 years ago, or like when I first saw Bitcoin and got into it in 2012, like there were literally, the UX was like nothing in 2012, right? Like you had to wire money to Mt. Gox. Like it was, or you had to like do meetups and like do local swaps. Like it was very hard. Now you can go to Coinbase. There's like no delays. You can sign up. You can transfer into like a hot wallet, and it takes no time. So, I mean, this might be negative, but I don't think the jargon will change just because that means the culture is going to change, and that's going to be really hard to do. I do think we can get UX to the point where it can be very seamless for users, and I think we will get there because it's an engineering problem. And like we've already made leaps and bounds improvements, and I think we'll continue to see that for like, the years to come, yeah.
Yeah, I think I do see issues on if you fine-tuning some wording to the user experience might be 10 times better. So for example, there's a lot of more front-facing apps like Farcaster. You don't even notice the blockchain exists, and sometimes they will market the gas fee into a blockchain network fee that you more easier to understand with the internet knowledge. So basically, when you look back into a more early age, that people are hard to understand when internet new comes out. There's a lot of words are new too, like browsing. Google is a new word, so maybe one of our company will be the next word for indicate for NFT trading. So I think that will be two part of the way to solve it. One is educational to a massive adoption user by media exposure and educational sessions and something like that, so they can discover, on-chain is the new online. That is a very good marketing world to understand. You can transfer value from not from a centralized website, and your digital asset are cross-platform. And I think the idea of this are still very interesting for new users to learn. Yes, and I think the second part is the technical part. Like the account abstraction really teaches users to get on board on a more easier way that they can understand. So we try not to say that smart contract account. We say smart account. You can buy some point from your credit card and pay the blockchain network fee as easy as you used before. Yes.
Yeah, I think user experience definitely, even just for the past years, the whole idea of embedded wallets and all that, there's a lot of very good development on that track. So hopefully that route, not hopefully, but I'm pretty sure that will continue because they're all great teams that are working on that. And I guess it's interesting that, David, you mentioned the media exposure, like the whole I think this is something that is also very challenging, like the whole people outside of Web3, they looking in, they all see, like, it's funny, like all the keywords that we come up with, like, oh, haha, and it's actually, people still have very bad idea of like why we were here, like why you guys are doing this. So I think powerful and also really good use cases and also good communication to the outside is very, very important. Right now, if you go to Farcaster, I think I would say 99% of the users are still very Web3 and even Degen. How do we do that? Because we already see the power of like the Farcaster's case, and how do we onboard more people to that thing, and also Lens protocol, for example, just another ways of doing that. Yeah, I really hope that we can move forward. Yeah.